She ran into the forest to escape her abusers. Little did she know the kind hermit who saved her was the exiled Wolf King. Prologue. My lungs were on fire. Every breath was a razor blade, slicing me open from the inside out. The rain, so cold it felt like needles, plastered my thin t-shirt to my ribs, offering no escape from the chill that had sunk into my bones. "Kella, get back here, you worthless girl." His voice, thick with rage and the power that choked our pack, ripped through the trees. Jared. My stepbrother. My alpha. The monster who had made my life a living hell since he'd stolen the pack from its true line. I whimpered, a small, pathetic sound lost in the storm. My bare feet skidded in the mud, and I slammed my shoulder against a massive, unyielding pine. The impact stole the last of my air. I couldn't scream. I couldn't do anything but run. He was toying with me. I knew it. He and his two enforcers, Marcus and Deviation, were letting me run. They wanted to see me break. They wanted to enjoy the terror. This was supposed to be the night. The night of my claiming. I was 21, an Omega, and in Jared's twisted mind, that meant I was his property. His to break, his to bind, his to use and discard. My stepmother, his mother, had smiled this morning as she'd locked me in the cellar to prepare. "You'll finally be useful," she'd hissed, her perfume making me gag. But I'd found a loose board. I'd found a moment of chaos during the storm. And I ran. I ran with no shoes, no coat, no food. I just ran. Now the game was over. I could smell them on the wind, that metallic, coppery scent of their rage. They were close. So close. My ankle twisted, a sickening snap echoing in the woods, and I went down hard. I cried out, the pain blinding. I tried to crawl, my nails digging into the wet earth, but it was no use. I was done. "There she is," Marcus bellowed, a laugh in his voice. I looked up, hopeless, tears mixing with the rain on my face. Through the trees, I saw them, three massive shadows, their eyes glowing with the first hints of their shift. They were going to drag me back. They were going to. No. My eyes darted to the right. To the wall of ancient, gnarled trees that marked the border. The Blackwood Forest. A place so forbidden, so dark, that even our pack's ancestors had warnings about it carved into the lodge stone. A place, they said, that was cursed. Home to a beast, a monster, a hermit who devoured the souls of any who dared to enter. The king's prison, my stepmother used to call it, to scare me into behaving. "He'll eat you alive if you're bad." Jared and his goons stopped at the tree line, their laughter dying. They were waiting for me to beg. I looked from their snarling faces to the oppressive darkness of the forbidden woods. One was a certain, agonizing prison. The other was a myth, a legend, a chance. If I was going to die, I would die free. "Kella, don't you dare," Jared growled, his voice losing its confident edge. He was afraid of this place. That was all I needed. With a final, desperate sob that felt like it tore my throat open, I lunged. I threw my entire, broken body past the ancient, rotting warning sign and into the darkness of the Blackwood Forest. I heard Jared scream my name, a sound of pure fury. "You're mine." But I was already falling. The darkness wasn't just in the trees. It rose up from the ground itself, swallowing me whole. My head hit something hard, and the world, the rain, the pain, the fear, all of it just stopped. "Hey everyone." Wow, that was intense, wasn't it? My heart is still pounding. I'm so excited to share this new story with you. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Let me know in the comments what city or country you're in and what the weather's like there today. It's so amazing to see how far these stories travel. And if you're enjoying this so far, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single chapter. Your support means everything. Okay, let's get back to Kella. Chapter 1. I woke up to two things, silence and warmth. The silence was absolute, a thick, heavy blanket that muffled the world. The kind of quiet I had only dreamed of, a quiet without footsteps in the hall, without a door slamming, without my name being spat like a curse. The warmth was the real shock. I wasn't on the cold, muddy forest floor. I wasn't dead. I was in a bed. My eyes snapped open. The room was dim, lit only by the soft, flickering orange of a fire in a stone hearth across the room. I was lying on a simple cot, but I was under a pile of heavy, high-wool blankets. My t-shirt was gone. Instead, I was dressed in a man's long-sleeved linen shirt that was so big it hung off my shoulders and went down to my knees. Someone had undressed me. Panic, cold and sharp, shot through me. I scrambled backward, my back hitting a solid wall of rough-hewn logs. My ankle. I looked down. The pain was gone, replaced by a dull throb. My ankle had been expertly wrapped in clean, white bandages. My other cuts and scrapes, the ones I'd gotten from my fall, were gone too. Not just cleaned, but healed. Completely. Where was I? The cabin was small. One room, from what I could see. The hearth, the cot, a sturdy wooden table with 2 chairs, and shelves against the far wall packed with books. I listened. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the low, faint whistle of wind outside. No yelling, no thumping. I tried to stand, but the moment I put weight on my wrapped ankle, a hiss of pain escaped me. I was trapped. The heavy wooden door of the cabin creaked open. I screamed, a pathetic, strangled sound, and flattened myself against the wall, pulling the blanket up to my chin. A man filled the doorway. And when I say filled, I mean it. He was a giant. He had to duck to get inside. His shoulders were so broad they seemed to take up all the space in the room. He was carrying a load of firewood, which he dropped into a wooden box by the door with a quiet thud. He didn't look at me. Not at first. He just moved. He was dressed in simple, dark trousers and a tunic, like something out of an old-world history book. His dark hair was long, tied back in a messy knot, and his face was covered in a thick, untamed beard. This had to be him. The hermit. The beast of the Blackwood. I started to tremble, the terror from the forest flooding back in, but different now. He finally turned. I stopped breathing. His face. Half of it was beautiful. A strong jaw, a straight nose, a high cheekbone. But the other half was a ruin. A massive, puckered scar ran from his temple, down his cheek, and disappeared into his beard. It looked like an old burn or maybe claw marks. One of his eyes, the one on the good side, was a clear, startling ice blue. The other, the one on the scarred side, was clouded, milky, and blind. He was a monster. But he hadn't hurt me. He'd helped me. He looked at me, his good eye taking in my fear. He didn't speak. He just watched me, his gaze so intense it felt like a physical weight. "Please," I whispered, my voice cracking. "Please, don't hurt me. I'll go. I promise." I didn't mean to come here. His expression didn't change. He just stared. I thought my heart was going to beat out of my chest. Was he mute? He turned away from me, moving to the hearth. He picked up a small iron pot that was sitting in the embers and poured a steaming, fragrant liquid into a wooden bowl. Then he turned back. He took one step toward me. I flinched so hard I hit my head against the wall. He stopped. He looked at the bowl in his hand, then at me. With a quiet, almost imperceptible sigh, he placed the bowl on the floor, a good 10 feet away from me, and then slowly, deliberately, backed away until he was on the other side of the room. He sat in one of the heavy wooden chairs, turning his back to me slightly. It was an offering, and an act of trust. He was giving me space. My stomach gurgled, a loud, embarrassing noise in the silence. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. Shakily, keeping my eyes locked on his broad back, I slid off the cot. The linen shirt was soft against my skin. I limped across the floor, my ankle protesting, snatched the bowl, and scrambled back to the safety of the cot in seconds. It was broth. Rich, hot, and filled with tender meat and vegetables. It was the best thing I had ever tasted. I drank it down, scalding my tongue, not caring. I didn't stop until the bowl was empty. I looked up at him. He was still sitting there, unmoving, facing the fire. "Thank you," I whispered to his back. He gave a tiny, almost invisible nod. I didn't know who this man was. I didn't know what he was. He was scarred and silent and terrifying. But in the last 10 minutes, he had shown me more kindness than I had received in the last 10 years. I was in the den of the beast, the forbidden monster that everyone feared. And for the first time in my entire life, I wasn't afraid. Not really. I was afraid of Jared. I was afraid of my stepmother. I was afraid of the pack. This silent, scarred man? He was just quiet. I stayed on the cot, wrapped in the heavy blankets, and watched the fire. My body ached, my ankle throbbed, but the broth was warm in my belly. The cabin was safe. What is your name?" I asked the silence. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was a low, gravelly rumble that seemed to vibrate in my chest. It was rough from disuse, but deep. "Silas," he said, without turning around. Silas. I didn't know it then, but it was the name of the man who would ruin me and the name of the man who would save me. "I'm Kala," I said. He said nothing. He just kept watching the fire. And, for now, that was enough. Chapter 2. The next few days passed in a blur of sleep, broth, and silence. Silas was a ghost. He would leave the cabin before I woke, and I would find a bucket of fresh, cold water by the door and a small stack of firewood. He would return in the evenings, smelling of pine and cold air, usually with a rabbit or a few birds slung over his shoulder. He never spoke. He would cook his meal, always making extra, and would leave a bowl for me on the floor in the same safe spot. He never tried to sit with me, never tried to talk to me. He would eat at his table, his back to me, and then he would sit by the fire and read one of his many books. I watched him. I couldn't stop watching him. He was, as I'd first thought, a giant. But his movements were not clumsy. They were precise. When he tended the fire, his hands, which were huge and calloused, were surprisingly gentle. He was a creature of quiet habit. And he was, I realized, the beast of the forest. The monster. But what kind of monster read poetry? I saw the title on one of the books, Leaves of Grass. My ankle was healing at an impossible rate. The puffiness was gone. The pain was a memory. When I dared to unwrap the bandage, the skin was smooth. Not a bruise. Not a mark. I looked at the wrapping. It had been smeared with a dark, sweet-smelling green paste. Herbs. He had healed me. On the third night, the nightmare came. It was always the same. I was back in the cellar. Jared was at the door, the key scraping in the lock. The smell of his cologne, a sick, musky scent, filled the air. "It's time, Kala," he'd whisper, his voice oily. Time to be a useful omega. I woke up screaming. I was thrashing in the cot, the blankets twisted around my legs, my heart trying to escape my chest. No, please, don't touch me, don't. A shadow fell over me. Silas was there, kneeling by the cot. He wasn't touching me, but he was close. So close. His one good eye was wide, alert, and was that concern? I stopped breathing. He was so big. He could crush me with one hand. "He's not here," Silas rumbled, his voice low and steady, a rock in the middle of my panic. "You're safe." The sound of his voice, the simple, definitive statement, cut through the terror. I looked at him, really looked at him, in the low light of the dying fire. His scarred face was just inches from mine. He wasn't angry that I'd woken him. He wasn't annoyed. He was just there. You're not. I stammered, my brain still foggy with sleep terror. "You're not him." "No," he said. A flicker of something dark and ancient passed through his gaze. "I am not." He reached out slowly, as if not to startle me. My first instinct was to flinch, to curl into a ball. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for a blow. It never came. Instead, I felt a gentle, callous thumb brush away the tears on my cheek. It was a simple, hesitant touch. Over in a second. When I opened my eyes, he was already standing up, his face back to its neutral, unreadable mask. He retreated to his side of the room. He didn't have a bed, I realized. He had a pile of furs by the hearth, a place he hadn't slept in because I was here. He'd been sleeping in his chair, sitting up, watching over me. "Thank you," I whispered into the darkness. "For the broth. For my ankle." He nodded, a small dip of his head. He sat back in his chair, the one he'd been living in for 3 days, and pulled a blanket over his legs. "Who hurt you, Kala?" he asked, his voice soft, but with an edge I hadn't heard before. A hard, cold edge. Like chipping stone. My stepbrother. Jared. The alpha of the Silver Moon Pack. The name seemed to hang in the air. Silas went very still. "Silver Moon," he repeated. He didn't say it like a question. He said it like a curse. He was hunting me, I said, the confession spilling out. "He wants to claim me. I'm an Omega. It's my duty." The last words came out bitter, tasting like ash. Silas's hand, the one resting on the chair's arm, clenched. His knuckles went white. "Duty," he growled. The word vibrated with a sudden, terrifying rage that he seemed to be holding back with all his might. "There is no duty in that. He's the alpha," I whispered, as if that explained everything. "He's the strongest. He took the pack 4 years ago. He killed the old alpha. In a challenge." Silas turned his head, and his one good eye pinned me to the cot. "He killed the alpha?" "Yes. Alpha. I don't remember his name. He was exiled, I think. Jared said he was weak. Jared's father helped him. They said the old alpha abandoned us. That he was a coward." Silas stood up. He walked to the window, his back to me again, and stared out at the dark forest. His shoulders were rigid. "He won't stop," I said, my voice trembling again. "Jared. He won't stop. He's afraid of this forest, but he wants me. He's an alpha. He won't let an Omega defy him. He'll come." "No," Silas said. "You don't understand. He will not come," Silas interrupted, his voice a low, definitive promise. "He will not cross the boundary." "How do you know?" Silas turned. The firelight caught his face, casting deep, dancing shadows over his scars. His good eye seemed to glow with a faint blue light. "Because he knows what I am," he said. "He knows what's in this forest. And he knows, if he steps 1 foot over that line." He let the sentence hang, but I felt the meaning of it in my bones. "He'll die." What are you?" I asked, the question I'd been dying to ask. "Are you the beast?" He looked at me for a long, long time. I could see a war happening behind his eye. "They call me a beast," he finally said, his voice laced with a sadness so deep it made my chest ache. "They call me a monster. A hermit. An exile." He took a step toward me, into the light. "Jared calls me the one who abandoned you." My blood ran cold. "What?" "The alpha he killed," Silas said, his voice breaking on the word. "The coward who was exiled." He stopped at the foot of my cot, and for the first time, he let me see all of him. The power, the rage, the sorrow. That was my brother. And the alpha he failed to kill, the one who was truly exiled, was me. Chapter 3. The words hung in the air, heavier and more dangerous than the silence had ever been. Silas. The true alpha. The one Jared's father had lied about, had helped banish. The man my stepfamily had built their entire, bloody reign on defeating. He wasn't just a hermit. He was the exiled king. "You." I was speechless. "You're him? The old alpha?" "But Jared said, they said you were dead. Or a coward." "A lie," Silas rumbled, his good eye burning with a cold fire. "It is easier to build power on a coward's grave than to admit you are a traitor and a usurper." He looked away, his jaw working. My brother, he was my beta. He was weak-willed. Jared's father, a man named Thomas, poisoned his mind. Convinced him I was the threat. They staged a challenge. It was an ambush. Me, against 5 of his loyalists. I was wounded. He gestured to the scarred side of his face. This was their gift. They left me for dead. But I am not so easy to kill. I retreated here, to my ancestral lands. To the Blackwood. It all clicked into place. The fear. The warnings. The curse. It wasn't the forest. It was him. They weren't afraid of a beast. They were afraid of the rightful king. Jared knows you're alive, I breathed, the realization hitting me. He knows. That's why he forbids anyone from coming here. He's afraid of you. He is, Silas confirmed. But his fear is overcome by his arrogance. And his desire. His eye flickered to me, and I felt a blush creep up my neck. I'm sorry, I whispered. I brought him to your doorstep. By running here, I've put you in danger. Silas actually laughed. It was a short, harsh, barking sound that held no humor. Kella, you did not bring danger. You brought a reckoning. I have waited. I have healed. I have let them fester in their stolen power. But for him to hunt you, to hunt an Omega, to force a claiming. He slammed his fist into the log wall. The entire cabin shook. I flinched, pulling the blanket to my chest. He froze. He looked at his fist, then at me, and all the rage drained from his face, replaced by a deep, aching shame. I am sorry, he said, his voice a gravelly whisper. I am not. I would never. I know, I said, and the crazy thing was I did know. I had seen Jared's rage. It was hot and cruel and aimed at me. Silas's rage was different. It was cold and deep, and it was for me. You're not him, I said, echoing his words from my nightmare. He looked at me, his gaze so intense it felt like he was seeing into my soul. I need to check the perimeter, he said abruptly. He grabbed a heavy cloak from a peg and, without another word, was gone, the door shutting with a quiet click behind him. I was alone again, but the cabin didn't feel silent anymore. It felt charged. The next morning, a massive storm rolled in. The wind howled like a living thing, and the rain lashed against the windows so hard I was afraid the glass would break. The cabin, which had felt like a fortress, now felt like a cage. Silas was inside, and he was restless. He couldn't go out. He paced, back and forth, from the window to the fire, from the fire to the door. He was a wolf in a cage, and the cabin felt like it was shrinking with every step he took. I tried to stay out of his way. I sat on the cot, my legs tucked under me, and pretended to be fascinated by the wood grain on the wall. You are afraid of me, he stated. It wasn't a question. I looked up. He had stopped pacing and was watching me, his arms crossed over his massive chest. No, I said, my voice too high. He raised a skeptical eyebrow. Okay, maybe a little, I admitted. You're a lot. And you're the alpha. The real alpha. And I'm just me. Just you, he said, stepping closer. Kella. You are the only person who has defied Jared and lived. You are the only one who has ever dared to cross into my forest. You are not just anything. My heart did a strange little flip. The storm raged. By midday, it was so dark we had to light the lamps. The tension was unbearable. I had to do something. Can you read to me? I blurted out. He stopped his pacing. What? The books. I pointed to the shelf. The leaves of grass. I've never had anyone read to me before. He stared at me, his good eye searching my face as if looking for a trap. Then, slowly, he nodded. He took the book from the shelf. He didn't sit in his chair across the room. He sat on the floor, his back against the wall, just a few feet from my cot. Close enough for me to feel the heat radiating from him. He opened the book. And he read. His voice, that low, rough rumbled, smoothed out. It was deep and melodic, and it wrapped around me like the warm blankets on the bed. He read about the body, and the soul, and the grass, and for the first time, I understood what the words meant. I didn't just hear the poetry. I felt it. I watched his face. The way his lips moved. The way the firelight played on his scarred cheek. He wasn't a monster. He was a man. A man who loved poetry. A man who had been deeply, terribly wronged. He read for hours. The storm outside. Jared will be restless, he said, his voice a low rumble. My spoon clattered against the bowl. What? The storm will have him riled up. He'll see it as an omen. He'll be testing the boundaries, looking for a sign of you. Of me. So, what do we do? I asked, my newfound safety evaporating. You need to learn, he said. He stood, taking our empty bowls to the wash basin. Learn? Learn what? How to hide. How to run. How this forest works. I can't protect you if you don't know how to help me. He turned, his good eye pinning me with an intensity that made me shiver. This is my land. It's a part of me. It will protect you if you let it. He took me outside for the first time. The air was so clean, so crisp, it stung my lungs. The forest floor was a soft carpet of pine needles. The destruction from the storm was immense, fallen trees, broken branches, but already the forest felt alive. Where are we going? I asked, trying to keep up with his long, effortless strides. To the heart, he said. He taught me. He taught me which mushrooms were safe to eat and which would kill you before you took a second bite. He showed me how to find clean water, how to walk without making a sound. Your feet, he said, stopping. You walk too heavy. You sound like a human. I am human, I said, frustrated. No, he said, his voice soft. He knelt, his back to me. You are an omega. You are more. You've been taught to be less. He touched the moss on the ground. Feel. Don't just step. Feel the ground. Let it be a part of you. Now, try again. I did. I tried to walk like him, like a shadow. We spent the day in the woods. He showed me a hollowed-out log, hidden by a curtain of ivy. If you're in danger, he said, his voice serious, you come here. You do not make a sound. You wait. Understand. I understand, I whispered. As the sun began to set, casting long, golden shafts of light through the massive trees, we reached a clearing. It was a perfect circle with a massive, ancient oak tree in the center. This is it, he breathed. The heart of the Blackwood. It's beautiful, I said. It was. It was the most peaceful place I had ever seen. It is, he agreed. I was getting tired. My ankle, though healed, was aching from the long day. I stumbled, and he caught me. His hand wrapped around my upper arm. His touch was electric. I froze. He froze. We were standing so close. I could feel the heat of his chest, see the flecks of silver in his ice blue eye. I could smell the pine and him. He smelled good, like earth and man and safety. Kala, he whispered, and my name on his lips was a prayer. Silas, I breathed. He was leaning in. His scarred face, which I had once thought monstrous, it was just his face. It was the face of the man who saved me. The man who read me poetry. His head dipped. I tilted mine up. My eyes fluttered shut. Crack. A branch snapped in the woods, not 20 yards away. Silas had me behind him in a microsecond. He was no longer the gentle poet. He was the king. He let out a low, rumbling growl that vibrated in my chest, a sound so primal it made the hair on my arms stand up. Who's there? He commanded, his voice no longer a rumble, but a roar of authority. Easy, Silas. Easy. A man stepped out of the trees. He was old, thin, and wiry, with a long gray beard. He was just a man. But Silas bowed his head. Elder, Silas said, his voice tight with respect. I came as soon as I heard, the old man said, his eyes darting to me, hiding behind Silas's massive back. The usurper is making a move. He's called the council. He's claiming you've broken the law. What law? Silas growled, his hand still on my arm, keeping me safely behind him. The law of the exile, the old man said, his voice grim. He claims you've abducted a Pac Omega. He claims you've stolen Kella. She is not stolen, Silas roared. She is under my protection. I know that, the old man said, raising his hands. And you know that. But the Pacs, they are afraid. Jared is twisting the law. He's saying that by taking her, you avoided the terms of your exile. He's saying he's coming to reclaim his property. And to execute you for your crimes. My heart stopped. No, I whispered. He can't. You're the true alpha. The old man looked at me, his eyes sad. Child, he is the true alpha. But Jared has the power. He has the Pac. And right now, he has the law on his side. He's not just hunting you anymore, Silas. He's declared war. Chapter 5. War. I looked at Silas. His face was carved from stone. He's bringing the whole pack? He is, child, the old man, who Silas had called elder, and whose name I learned was Elias, said grimly. He's using you as the excuse. He's telling the pack that Silas has gone rogue, that he's a danger, that he's corrupted an Omega. I am not corrupted. I cried, stepping out from behind Silas, my anger overpowering my fear. I ran. He was going to. I couldn't say it. Elias's gaze softened. We know, Kella. Those of us who remember the true king, we know. But Jared has the younger wolves. The ones raised on his lies. When? Silas's voice was a low growl. Now, Elias said. They're gathering at the border. They're carrying torches. They plan to burn this forest. To burn you out. No, I whispered, grabbing Silas's arm. The forest. His home. Our home. Silas looked at Elias. Get her out of here. What? No. I gripped his arm tighter. I'm not leaving you. Kella, this is not a fight you can win. This is Pac business. I am Pac. I yelled, surprising myself. Or I'm yours. I'm not leaving. You can't make me. Silas looked at me, his good eye searching my face. I saw the turmoil there. The king who had to protect his land and the man who had to protect me. Silas, Elias said, his voice urgent. There is no out. They've surrounded the forest. This is not a hunt. It's an extermination. A howl, long and full of bloodlust, echoed through the trees. It was close. Jared, I breathed. Silas's face hardened. He looked at me, then at Elias. Elias. To the heart. Barricade the cabin. Take her. No. Kella, listen to me, Silas said, grabbing my shoulders. His touch was firm, not gentle. It was the touch of an alpha. This is my fight. I have not been a king for a long time, but I am a king tonight. You must hide. The hollow log. The one I showed you. Silas, they'll kill you. It's all of them. Tears were streaming down my face. He's not alone, Elias said, and from his cloak, he pulled a long, curved silver knife. There are more of us than he knows. The old guard. We've been waiting. Another howl, closer. And then, the chanting. Burn him out. Burn him out. Go. Now. Silas roared. He shoved me toward Elias. Run. Elias grabbed my hand, and we ran. We ran through the forest, the one that I now knew. I could hear them, crashing through the undergrowth. They were clumsy, loud. They didn't know the forest. Not like he did. In here, Elias whispered, shoving me toward the ivy-covered log. Do not move. Do not make a sound. No matter what you hear. Do you understand? But Silas is the king, child. Let him be the king. He shoved me into the hollow space. It was dark and smelled of damp earth. He covered the entrance with the ivy, and then he was gone. I was alone, in the dark, and the war had begun. I heard shouts, growls, the unmistakable, sickening snarl of a wolf shifting, and then the screaming. I clamped my hands over my mouth to stop my own sobs. I heard fighting. It was all around me. I could smell the most awful coppery scent. And then I heard his voice. Jared's. Where is she, Silas? Give me the Omega and I'll let you live. As my pet. A laugh. You think you can take her? It wasn't Silas's voice. It was bigger, deeper. It was a growl that had learned to speak. She's mine. Jared screamed. She's worthless, a human-born Omega, but she is mine. And then I heard a sound that I will never, ever forget. It was the sound of Silas, the exiled king, the gentle hermit, the man who read me poetry, shifting. It wasn't a snarl. It was a roar. It was the sound of thunder and earth and 100 generations of kings. It was a sound that shook the ground. The log I was in vibrated. You're a true. Jared's voice was suddenly very small. Scared. You come into my home, Silas's new voice, the king's voice, boomed. You hunt my mate. You are not an alpha. You are a disease. No, please, it was my father. It was his plan. And you were the vulture who fed on the scraps. I heard a scream. Jared's scream. It was high and terrified, and it was cut off with a wet, sickening gurgle. And then, silence. A silence so profound, so heavy, it was worse than the fighting. I stayed in the log. I was shaking so hard I thought I would fall apart. What had happened? Was Silas, was he? The ivy was pulled away from the entrance. I screamed. Silas stood there. But he wasn't Silas. He was a man still. But he was more. He was taller. His shoulders were broader. His eyes, both of them, were blazing with an icy blue light. His scars were still there, but they seemed different. Like a badge of honor. He was covered in blood. But none of it, I realized, was his. He was magnificent. And terrifying. Kala, he said, and his voice was his own again. The king was gone. The hermit was back. He held out a hand. It was shaking. I took it. I crawled out of the log, my legs trembling. Is it over? I whispered. It's over, he said. He looked at his bloody hands. Jared, he's gone. The relief was so profound, I thought I would faint. I didn't. Instead, I did the one thing I'd been wanting to do since he'd caught me in the forest. I launched myself at him. I wrapped my arms around his neck, burying my face in his chest. You're alive, I sobbed. You're alive. He stood stiff as a board for a second. His arms, his massive, powerful arms, hovered at my back. He didn't know what to do. Silas, I whispered, looking up at him. It's okay. I'm here. He let out a breath he'd been holding for years, I think. And his arms came around me, pulling me so tight against him I thought my ribs would crack. He buried his face in my hair, and I felt his whole body tremble. The king had won the war. But the man just needed to be held. Chapter 6. We stood like that for a long time. Me, clinging to him like he was the only solid thing in the universe, and him, holding me like I was something precious he was afraid to break. The forest was silent. The old guard, Elias included, had taken care of the bodies. They had rounded up the few remaining traitors, the ones who had surrendered when they saw their alpha, Jared, be ended. What happens now? I whispered into his chest. He still smelled of pine and earth, and now of victory. He pulled back, just enough to look at me. The glowing blue light in his eyes had faded, leaving his one good eye, and the one blind, milky one. He was Silas again. My Silas. Now, he said, his voice rough. Now, we rebuild. He was wounded. I saw it then. A long, deep gash on his forearm, dark blood welling up. You're hurt, I said, my mother hen instinct, the one I never knew I had, kicking in. It's nothing, he growled. It's not nothing, I insisted. I grabbed his massive hand. Come on. Back to the cabin. You saved me. Let me save you. He looked at our joined hands. My small, pale hand, lost in his huge, calloused, blood-stained one. He nodded. We walked back to the cabin. Elias was there, tending the fire. He smiled, a sad, wise smile, as I sat Silas down in his own chair, for once, and fussed over him. I grabbed the bandages, the clean water, the herbal paste he had used on my ankle. The roles were reversed. The beauty was tending to the beast. As I cleaned the wound, my hands shaking, he watched me. His gaze was so intense, so full of something. I could barely breathe. You called me your mate, I whispered, my cheeks on fire. I didn't dare look at him. He was silent. Did you mean it? I asked, my voice even smaller. His hand came up, his fingers, so gentle, tilting my chin so I had to look at him. Kala, he said, his voice a low vibration. In our world, there are claimings. What Jared wanted. It is force. It is possession. It is ugly. He paused, searching for the words. And then, there is this. The fated. The one. He touched his scarred cheek. I have been alone for a long time. I thought I was a monster. That I deserved this. He looked at me, and his good eye was shining with unshed tears. And then you fell into my forest. You weren't afraid of my face. You were just you. You were kind. And brave. And you read me poetry, I whispered, a tear of my own rolling down my cheek. And I read you poetry, he echoed, a small smile touching his lips. So, mate? I asked again. Mate, he confirmed. If you will have me. A broken king. A hermit. A man with a lot of books. I finished for him. I leaned in. And I kissed him. It wasn't a fairy tale kiss. It was real. It was chapped lips and the taste of blood and home. It was a promise. He kissed me back. And all the loneliness and the fear and the rage, it all just melted away. He wasn't a king or a beast or a hermit. He was just Silas. And I was just Kala. And we were together. So I said, pulling back, my voice breathless. You're the Alpha King. What does that mean? It means we have a lot of work to do, he said. He looked at Elias, who was trying very hard not to smile. The packs, they are broken. They've been rudderless. They need us. Us, I said. A king is nothing without his queen. His Luna. My heart stopped. Luna. The female alpha. The heart of the pack. Silas, I said, I'm a human-born Omega. I'm worthless. Kala, he said, his voice firm, all the alpha back in it. You are the strongest person I have ever met. You are the heart. And you're mine. If you want to be. He gave me a choice. The one thing no one had ever given me. Jared had tried to take me. Silas was asking me. I think I've been running to you, Silas. Not from them. I think I've been running home. He smiled. A real, true smile. It transformed his face. The scars, they just disappeared. He was beautiful. Welcome home, my Kala, he said. Welcome home, my Luna. Epilogue. 1 year later. I stood on the porch of the cabin. It was bigger now. The old guard and the new pack, they had helped Silas expand it. It was a lodge now. A home. The forest was thriving. The Blackwood was no longer a forbidden place. It was the Heartwood, a sanctuary. I was no longer the terrified, broken girl. My hair was long. My body was strong. I was a queen. Silas, my king, my mate. He was in the clearing, the heart, training the new wolves. He was magnificent. He was laughing. I never thought I'd hear him laugh. His brother's betrayal, it still haunted him. But we were healing. Together. The packs, they had flocked to him. When word spread that the usurper was dead and the true king had returned, they came. They came with apologies, with hope. Jared's father, Thomas, he was dealt with. The pack law is harsh, but it is just. I placed a hand on my very round belly. The one thing. Jared and my stepmother had told me I was worthless for. The one thing they said I'd never. I felt a kick. A strong kick. Easy, little wolf, I whispered, rubbing my belly. Your father, he's busy. Never too busy. For my queens, a low voice rumbled from behind me. I smiled, leaning back. Silas. He had moved like a shadow. I hadn't even heard him. He wrapped his massive arms around me, his hands splaying protectively over my stomach. He kissed my shoulder, his beard tickling my neck. How are you? He whispered. We're good, I said, leaning into his warmth. He's strong. Like his father. He, or she, is a miracle, Silas breathed, his voice thick with an emotion he still wasn't used to. Joy. We stood there, the king, the queen, and the future, watching the sunset over our forest. I had run from a monster. I had run to a king. And in the end, I had found my everything. Wow. We made it. What a journey. I truly hope you enjoyed Kala and Silas's story. It was so intense to write. I have to know, what was the one part of the story that really stuck with you? Was it that terrifying prologue? My heart was in my throat. Or was it the moment Silas finally showed his true king form and growled, "She is under my protection"? I got chills. And how about that line? I think I've been running to you, not from them. Did that get you right in the feels? Let me know in the comments what you thought. I read every single one. And if you love this story, please hit that like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. My channel is still young and trying to grow, and every single subscription is a huge support from you. It truly means the world to me and lets me know that you want more stories like this one. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you all in